Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're uncovering the surprising, hidden architecture of the songs you listen to every single day. Whether you're a massive music fan, or maybe a new producer trying to figure out how to balance digital tools with raw musicianship, we're going to pull back the curtain on the modern music industry. We're getting into a pretty fascinating story about how the sounds actually hitting your ears are constructed.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty wild question. What on earth do a jammed trumpet valve and an Exxon oil field have to do with your favorite pop song? I know, it sounds like a completely impossible combination, right? But the quest for the perfect pop vocal and the rawest, most authentic groove actually share this incredibly bizarre DNA.
To really understand this, we've got to travel back almost a century. Picture this. It's a sweltering 1926 Chicago studio. Louis Armstrong is recording with his Hot 5 band at OK Records. They're cutting a track called Heebie-Jeebies directly onto a super fragile wax disc. Now, the pressure in these early studios was absolutely immense. There are no easy retakes here. Stopping means throwing away a ton of money and completely ruining the momentum. Suddenly, right in the middle of a take, Armstrong's trumpet valve jams dead. He has a split second to make a choice. Instead of bailing and ruining that expensive wax, he pulls the horn away and just starts using his voice to mimic the rhythmic bounce of his broken instrument. He literally invents rhythmic scat singing right there on the fly to save the recording.
And you know what? That single high-pressure moment changed everything. Armstrong's glitch became the first viral audio trend in history. It proved that audiences fundamentally crave authentic human flavor over perfectly mechanical execution. From that day forward, pop music shifted away from just properly performing sheet music and became all about the unique personality of the star delivering it. Modern pop is completely obsessed with this idea of the happy accident and keeping it raw. But here's the massive irony playing out in the industry right now. Major record labels are caught in this crazy tug of war. They're spending millions of dollars on software designed to digitally eliminate mistakes, while simultaneously trying desperately to manufacture the exact kind of raw, authentic viral moments that created modern pop in the first place.
So, where does the quest to digitally eliminate those mistakes actually begin? Well, it wasn't with the record producer at all. It started with a geophysics researcher named Dr. Andy Hildebrand. Back in the late 70s and 80s, Dr. Hildebrand was analyzing complex sound waves for the Exxon Oil Company. He used these things called autocorrelation algorithms to interpret sonar data bouncing off underground rock layers. The goal was to locate lucrative oil deposits. If you don't have a degree in audio engineering, don't sweat it. Just think of autocorrelation like a massive, highly sensitive sonic ruler. He was using it to measure the echo of sound waves off underground rocks to calculate exactly how deep the oil was hiding.
Right, so how do we get from drilling for crude oil to topping the Billboard charts? Believe it or not, it happened at a dinner party. A guest playfully challenged Dr. Hildebrand to invent a tool that would finally make her sing in tune. Talk about a light bulb moment. Hildebrand realized that instead of measuring the depth of the Earth's crust, he could use that exact same sonic ruler to measure the frequencies coming out of the human vocal tract. By adapting his complex Exxon phase vocoder algorithms, his software could instantly calculate how far a singer's note was from perfect pitch and seamlessly shifted back. And just like that, in 1996, Antares Auto-Tune was born. Initially, Hildebrand just intended for this tool to be completely imperceptible to the listener. It was supposed to be a stealth nudge, simply guiding a slightly flat note into perfect harmony without anyone noticing. But as with literally all powerful technology, users got their hands on it and immediately broke the rules. Producers cranked the software settings, specifically reducing the attack time, which is how fast the software reacts, down to absolute zero. By doing this, the software was forced to correct the pitch instantly, completely removing the natural microtonal slide of the human voice. This is what created that hypersynthetic, robotic vocal effect made globally famous by Cher's 1998 hit, Believe. For any aspiring producers tuning in, imagine you're setting up a vocal chain today and need to balance these digital tools. You can use an automated preset plugin that rigidly snaps and forces a voice onto a grid to achieve 100% pitch accuracy. It creates that instant robotic flair by aggressively locking the vocal into place. But then, compare that to a manual, surgical workflow using nuanced post-production software. That approach lets engineers surgically adjust pitch while actually retaining the singer's natural emotional variations, like their unique vibrato and natural vocal drift. For a new producer, this is the ultimate balancing act, right? Choosing between the stylistic sledgehammer of automation and the subtle scalpel of manual editing. To really wrap your head around the scale of this technological shift,
Think of pitch correction as the modern equivalent of inventing the microphone. Back in the 1930s, the microphone changed vocalists from belters trying to reach the very back row of a theater into intimate crooners who could whisper sensually right into a listener's ear. But here's the critical difference. The microphone just passively captured sound. Pitch correction actively alters it to fit a rigid, mathematical standard, specifically strict conformity to the Western tempered scale. In other words, it forces the human voice to conform entirely to the 12 specific notes you see on a standard piano keyboard, brutally ignoring all those beautiful, expressive microtonal spaces in between. Naturally, this level of digital manipulation sparks a fierce philosophical debate over what actually constitutes genuine art. You'll hear this a lot from purists who believe that true music inherently requires physical discipline, years of practice, breath control, muscle memory. The literal sweat that goes into hitting a perfect high note organically. The legendary Prince famously summed up this whole vibe with his motto, "Real music by real musicians." The core argument here is that relying on algorithms bypasses the human struggle, adding a layer of dishonesty to the art form. But then we have Dr. Hildebrand's take, and it's a deeply pragmatic counterargument. He views digital enhancement simply as a tool, not some sort of moral failing. When somebody actually asked him about the ethics of his invention, he had this famous reply. He said, "Someone asked me if I thought autotune was evil. I said, well, my wife wears makeup. Is that evil?" It's a fascinating perspective, isn't it? It really forces us to ask where we draw the line between artistic presentation and deception. When a producer opens up a vocal plugin today, they're greeted by sliders controlling parameters like correct pitch center and correct pitch drift. Just by maxing out these parameters, automated tools empower absolute non-singers to achieve completely flawless studio recordings. And this poses a massive question for the current generation navigating the industry. Is traditional musicianship even necessary for new producers anymore? If an algorithm can ensure every single note is perfectly in tune, where does the necessity for raw human talent even fit into the mix? And this reliance on digital correction builds into a much, much larger workflow shift. Take a look at a modern MIDI editor. Inside this environment, artists don't even need to physically touch an acoustic instrument. Using a digital grid, they can literally draw out their musical masterpieces with a mouse, dropping perfectly timed and perfectly tuned digital blocks right onto a timeline. The screen becomes the ultimate canvas, replacing the traditional live recording room entirely. So what we're looking at here is the rise of the digital audio workstation, or the DAW. The recording studio itself has fundamentally transitioned into a compositional device. We've moved from an analog era, where every time you copied a cassette tape it lost a bit of quality, into a digital era defined by infinite reproducibility without any degradation whatsoever. This DAW revolution means the gap between a multi-million-dollar major record label workflow and a teenager producing in their bedroom has almost completely vanished. They are both using the studio not just to record, but to compose. The software user clicking a mouse, the audio engineer setting up a session, and the traditional musician playing a guitar are now, very often, the exact same person. But wait, we are pushing this even further. We're actively exploring a frontier right now where automated algorithmic systems and artificial intelligence could potentially replace human artistic judgment entirely. We've literally seen the rise of fully algorithmic, non-human artists getting signed by major record labels like the AI rapper FN Meka. The digital tools aren't just helping us make the music anymore. In some cases, they're making the music themselves, which forces us to ask a pretty heavy question. Where does the art actually go when an algorithm writes the melody, performs the vocal, and entirely mixes the track? Interestingly, though, instead of completely rejecting this automation, entirely new genres have spawned to embrace it. Genres like hyperpop celebrate it, pushing voice prostheses to absurd maximums. Scholars actually call this post-human ventriloquism, where the human voice is completely stripped of its traditional emotional familiarity and treated as just another synthetic instrument in the mix. It boldly blurs the human-machine distinction to create a radically futuristic sound. It intentionally challenges all our old ideas of identity, gender, and authenticity in an age of automated sonic perfection. Critics, however, they'll argue that this tyranny of digital correction strips away the vital emotional subtlety of music. As one critic profoundly noted, a truly great singer finds countless possibilities for tonal variation inside just a single note. Think about a legendary blues singer like Bessie Smith. If you took her raw, pain-filled vocals and processed them through a pitch correction algorithm, she would sound completely soulless. Honestly, like Siri reading a weather report. By making every song mathematically perfect, we risk making every song emotionally wrong.
So here is the huge takeaway for any producer watching. We have to remember that technology does not determine its own use. Just like the creators of the vinyl turntable never intended for it to be used for DJ scratching, modern producers find genuine human expression by misusing, pushing, and intentionally breaking their digital tools. Your job isn't to perfectly obey the software. For a whole new generation, the true art isn't in breathing perfectly into a microphone. The art is in the brilliant manipulation of the digital sound genome itself to express something inherently human. Ultimately, this brings the whole thing full circle. Whether it's the beautiful struggle of a jammed trumpet valve in a hot Chicago studio back in 1926, or the intentional metallic distortion of a perfectly tuned waveform in a modern digital audio workstation today, we have to ask ourselves, when the music plays, what truly resonates with our humanity? If an algorithm can hit every note perfectly, does the soul of music actually live in the notes we miss? Think about that next time you press play. Thanks for hanging out with me on The Explainer.